We are live. Hi, my name is Ria Rustagi and I'm the co-founder and COO of a startup called Neuphony, and we are developing a wearable headband which helps individuals condition their brain to avoid distraction. Our headset creates a mental map of the brain and recommends meditation techniques tailored to you to help you improve your efficiency and discover the time you didn't have. As a part of a startup, every Sunday we invite professionals from all over the world to come and share their expertise on mental health, meditation, neuroscience, and psychology. And today we have Professor Raghu Raghavan. He is the chair of the Montfort University in UK. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Prof, for coming on our platform.
Thank you for inviting me to the show.
It's really interesting to see your work because you're the chair of mental health in a university, and that is so interesting in itself. Can you share some insights about your work?
Yeah, sure. My work here in the UK is predominantly an academic based on academic research,
Mm-hmm.
and I work with various communities, Indian communities, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, mainly a lot of South Asian communities
Mm-hmm.
in the UK on the inequalities in mental health and why some of those people are not actually accessing mental health services and how can we understand some of those issues and how can we inform professionals as to what should be done
Mm-hmm.
from a policy stuff and also in terms of other culture and religion and other things that are actually taken into account in terms of psychiatric interviews
Mm-hmm.
or whether they're totally ignored. And many people, I think, especially some of the African Caribbean communities, they get a very bad deal in our mental health services in the UK, especially,
Mm-hmm.
and also some many other parts of the world too, because there is overdiagnosis of things, and people are actually, go through criminal justice systems for whatever reason, because of racism, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
is one issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my work is actually surrounding that, is trying to explore those inequalities and try and provide solutions and help policymakers to shape up those policies.
Wow, this is like really interesting because when we talk about mental health, firstly, that is one issue that people don't talk about mental health a lot, and then going into the different reasons and how culture, ethnicity, racism is impacting mental health. So, this is really very interesting. So, if the audience has any questions, please share, and I will ask Prof. Raghu Raghavan for you. So, I have prepared a script for you just to have a structure to the live. My first question would be, how are mental health and culture ethnicity really connected? How does a culture, maybe Hinduism, maybe anything Muslim, Christian, how do these cultures really impact our mental health?
Okay, first of all, I think we need to understand what is mental health and what
Yes.
is mental illness, because obviously the two terms are actually used quite frequently.
Mhm.
When we talk about mental health, mostly people mean mental illness, and people don't actually talk about mental illness. So I think it's important that we understand what is mental health.
Yes.
Mental health is not mental illness.
Mhm.
Mental health is, we all have mental health in the sense that the day-to-day stress and strain and how one overcomes all the difficulties in day-to-day life and functions in a balanced mode. That doesn't mean to say that you don't have any difficulties, that you don't have any anxiety, you don't have any worries, you don't have any sadness. We all have all those things.
Mhm.
But somehow we have found ways of actually overcoming those worries and anxieties and sadness
Mhm.
and found better ways of actually dealing with those things. And that quality in ourselves, how we actually manage those, not just cope, how we manage those things
Mhm.
successfully and in a day-to-day life and achieve our aims and objectives in life
Mhm.
and purpose in life. That is what we call mental health.
Okay.
And mental illness, on the other hand, is when you have problems in actually functioning on your day-to-day life
Mhm.
because of many issues, because of anxiety or depression or other forms of mental illness. but it actually disrupts your day-to-day life. That's what we call mental illness.
Yeah.
Or mental distress to a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent. So it is a kind of a continuum whereby you have the health. Not everybody is mental ill, but everybody experiences mental health issues and mental distress on a day-to-day pattern. But that doesn't mean to say that we are all mental ill. We
Yeah.
construct, we overcome some of those things for resilience, etc. In terms of how we deal with that. So that is kind of the mental health and mental illness, how we look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you the question in relation to how culture and religion shapes up those things, because culture essentially shapes the way we think.
Mm-hmm.
Different culture, different nationalities, different languages have different ways of actually looking at mental health and mental illness or mental distress in the day-to-day stuff here. Obviously, there is the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
There is a negativity attached to mental illness or mental distress because people are actually often very reluctant to talk about it. Other people don't actually understand it. We call people very names in relation to because of people's ignorance, etc. So there is that cultural stigma and the negativity that varies from culture to culture. In India, in the Indian South Asian culture, it is a big hoo-ha in terms of
Yeah.
the cultural issues, family issues. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about it. Young girls don't get married because of the fact that a relative has got some form of mental illness. It might be very minor. It might be, you can take
Yes.
medication and recover that, but you still think that it is actually something incurable stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not incurable at all. It is actually somebody that goes through a phase in their life. And again, culture also shapes the way we actually understand some of those symptoms, really, because the culture, our religion, and our culture, and the experiences that we have, the traditions that we are actually built in or actually brought up in,
Mm-hmm.
they actually influence how we express those things,
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, to other people, how we talk about it at other people. Sometimes we don't talk about it. We talk
Yeah.
about it. We suffer in silence. Some people talk about it. Some people, they may actually, especially South Asian women, tend to actually express these things more of a physical symptom as opposed to any kind of worry or anxiety. They might actually say, I have a headache and it's just not going away. I have aches and pains in my
Mm-hmm.
body, which is actually, something to do connected with their worries or depression or whatever. So I think people, the way that they express how mental illness is actually influencing, how mental distress is actually influencing them, that they express that in different style.
Mm-hmm.
And also the kind of community support is also a factor here.
Mm-hmm.
It depends upon what kind of support you actually get from the community itself, whether you actually are looked upon as somebody, that doesn't fit into the community because of the fact that you once in a while you have actually experienced anxiety, or once in a while you have actually experienced depression, but you overcome that. You have had medication, you have had support mechanisms, etc. You overcome that. But how the community looks upon it. And once you have had a diagnosis of mental illness, community kind of thinks that is it. You're mentally ill for the rest of your life. That is
Yeah.
not true at all. Then why don't we call the same thing about we don't think the same thing about it's not the same way as asthma or diabetes. It doesn't stay with you all the way. For
Mm-hmm.
some people it might, but for majority it doesn't. And also the kind of resources that we have, whom you talk to, etc. Because sometimes, from the cultural perspective, people are very reluctant to go and see a psychiatrist or seek professional help, but they are more happy to actually talk to a religious leader or a community leader
Yeah.
or an NGO organization that actually works in that field because they feel that's more approachable. They understand the language, they
Mm-hmm.
understand the religious tone to it,
Mm-hmm.
or they might actually think that I can go and pray and do all those things, seek help, which is not bad at all. And I think we shouldn't be non-judgmental because actually it is each person's choice. I'm not saying that we should not be condemning any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is one's way of actually accustoming to those problems and issues and how to find solutions to those
Mm-hmm.
things. So those are the different ways in which how culture and religion might actually influence basically our thinking, the way we actually express those thoughts to other people, how we seek help or don't seek help, And as you said at the very beginning, in South Asian culture in the UK, it is pretty an issue in the sense that people don't actually seek help at the very beginning, and
Mm-hmm.
they end up in a crisis context. And it is only then they actually get to admitted to hospital under the what we call the mental health act sections, etc. But otherwise, people don't actually seek any help.
Mm-hmm. This is really interesting, actually. Thank you for putting it in these words because it kind of seems like if a person is born, if the same person is born in a different culture, it's a totally different new person because your belief system, the way you think and you're brought up changes. So, and that's how I think your capabilities of how you deal with the mental health also has an influence by the culture you come from.
Yes, that's very true. But I think there is the issue. There is a movement of the global mental health movement,
Yeah.
which is some people think the global mental health movement is actually mainly looking at the medication. You use the same pharmaceutical, same medicine and
Mm-hmm.
throughout the world, which is true. But I think that the culture doesn't influence
Mm-hmm.
mental illness or mental distress or how one constructs that mental health. But culture does actually have, so there is also an anti-factor to that, the cultural psychiatry group, the cultural mental health group,
Mm-hmm.
which actually thinks that culture does actually have a major role to play in how one seeks help and how one reports help, how one reports to
Mm-hmm.
other professionals for help seeking,
Mm-hmm.
and the kind of things that they might actually receive, because some people might not actually take medication
Mm-hmm.
because they might think that is not a very good thing that I want to have, but
Mm-hmm.
they might actually be happy to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
freely, not necessarily a therapeutic mode, but
Mm-hmm.
in an advanced thing, you can actually also look into the kind of more advanced therapy that might be more culturally orientated towards that
Mm-hmm.
person.
And I
But that
think
is still in a very infancy stage in terms of how we shape up therapy for with cultural influences. People still don't think about it very much.
Mhm. But I think this is also true even for like just normal illnesses, you know. Like in India, I feel, at least with my family, we were never very active on taking medications, even for fever. So we always used to have like homemade remedies for stuff. And I think uh, even if I'm like, oh, we're having a blue day, let's talk, let's speak, let's drink, eat something good rather than eating a medication. So I think it holds definitely true even for mental health, that people now, that comes into mental health domain, so people don't want to reach out or have medication, they want to solve the problem inside their closed four walls of the house basically.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
perfect, thank you for putting it in such a nice way. It was very nice.